in a victory for freedom, Idaho Governor Bush Otter, I can't believe that's a real name, I love it, signed a bill that basically would probably allow drunken frat boys to carry guns on the college campuses. All right, so I pretty much outed my liberal bias on this issue, and I'm definitely admit that I've got a huge bias on this because I generally think that this is probably a bad idea. Now, I realize that other people will disagree, and we can have a good civil discussion on this. Because that said, we have an issue with school shootings. Of the 44 shootings since Sandy Hook, 16 of those occurred at college campuses. So, I mean, really, when you think about arming students on a college campus, you would actually have a pretty decent argument saying that that actually might make college campuses a little bit safer because of the whole gun-free zone. I don't necessarily agree with that, nonetheless. Speaking of college campuses, the heads of all 8 of Idaho's public colleges opposed this bill, as well as students and professors. Now, like I said, I understand that this argument that this will protect students from being targets of this shooting, and that gun-free zones are, in some people's minds, a target of opportunity, in which we need to have our students armed and ready, or faculty, or whatever. But I don't agree that this is the approach, that this approach is better than prevention, through, you know, things like mental health, fighting poverty, background checks, etc. With all that said, I want to get our panelists' thoughts on this. Do you guys agree with this bill? Do you think it's a good idea to have guns on campus in Idaho and other places? Why or why not?
To me, I think it should be left up to the universities. Like there are certain studies out that, like, that certain crimes go down when you have guns on campus, like sexual assault and robberies, things like that. But conversely, you'll probably see a rise in accidental shootings just because if there's more of something, there's a chance that a higher accident that an accident will occur. Like, it's just a fact. But I think it's up to the individual universities to make this decision. And what we're talking about in general with these laws is people who already have concealed carry permits can bring their guns on campus. So, like, the crime rate for people who go through the concealed carry permit like regulations and all that, that's already kind of low. So I don't think it's like a big apocalyptic deal. And most of the cases where people talk about college kids getting drunk and shooting each other are campuses that banned guns in the first place, and that magical ban didn't stop them from bringing the gun on campus.
All right, Jordan.
Yeah, man, I'm sorry to beat a dead horse. This is just another example of a Republican showing how much he believes in big government. So in this particular example in Idaho, the heads of all 8 of Idaho's public colleges opposed this bill. And so now you're going to pass the bill. Like, the schools don't want this. So why are you passing this law?
Right.
But I don't get it. But yeah, there's I don't know. I went to a school that didn't, because I went to a small private school. Like, we didn't have official, like, nationwide fraternities or stuff like that, and like all of our on-campus housing was like dorms with there were a few apartments. So my college experience is not a good background for a lot of, like, typical college housing life. But I mean, if you've got a campus where you can have parties and stuff like that, and you've got campuses where alcohol and stuff like that's is allowed on campus, then I don't know that I want a bunch of armed kids. Now, Sean does bring up a point that, like, people who take the time, do the concealed carry permit, you have to get training and safety class and stuff like that. Although you certainly can find anecdotal evidence that shows these people using their guns stupidly, i.e. George Zimmerman. But they're still statistically, we need to legislate from statistics, not from anecdotes. There's a lower crime rate amongst these people. So there's that argument.
And to sort of add to that, I have a lot of respect for people who take the time, that know their weapon in and out, know how to use it, they've trained with it. Like, consistently. They know what to do. The responsible gun owners. I love you guys. I love responsible gun owners. It's the irresponsible ones that I have a real issue with. But continue with your point.
Yeah, well, and that's I think that's part of it. That to me, that's gun control legislation that does work. Like I would not be opposed at all to if having to qualify and prove that you have your gun safely secured. We've talked about this in the past.
Yep.
That said, the college I went to, you could have guns on campus. You just didn't keep them. You brought them to the safety office and they kept them in a safe. And whenever you wanted to go get your gun to use it, you went and checked it out and you got your gun. Now, obviously, that isn't what the purpose of concealed carry, which is for self-defense. That wouldn't help in a situation like that. So I guess we need to let this experiment run and see the data. And if a few years down the line, if states that pass these laws, if they have more gun-related violence on campuses, then we need to do away with this. I don't foresee this being a good deterrent to gun violence, but I'm willing to be wrong. I'm a pretty big Second Amendment guy, but if the schools don't want it, I don't know why you're forcing it down their throats.
The thing that liberals always gloss over is they say gun violence, gun violence, gun violence. But there are other types of violent crimes that get deterred when you allow, statistically, when you allow concealed carry permits. Like a woman is less likely to be raped on a campus with concealed carry laws than without it, and that's just because there's a little extra fear there. So, like I said, if you want to look at the trade-offs, because there are trade-offs, and say, hey, look, the risk of an accidental shooting or somebody, firing off a couple rounds and going crazy and killing somebody, or an angry college kid getting mad at his girlfriend, all those gun-related scenarios, if you want to say that risk outweighs a decrease in sexual assaults or robberies or whatever, that's a conversation that is fair to have, but it's basically a trade-off, and I don't really care that eight universities were opposed to it. I don't think the law is structured the way I want it. I would want them to each it not to be against the law, but it's up to the campus to make the policy. If you understand what I'm saying,
yeah.
So basically, the law could still exist and you won't get arrested, but if one of the 8 or 0 of the 8 want to have it allowed or not allowed, that's perfectly fine. And there's other colleges that are private colleges that should be allowed to make that decision. I think that this is very similar to the e-cigarette thing. It should be up to the people who own the property to make the decision what they want on or off the campus.
Right.
Yeah, I would be a lot more okay with schools, getting to say, hey, we are a gun-free school, or we are a gun-allowed school, or whatever. And then you let the free market take over, and people that don't want to go to those gun schools can go to the gun-free schools, and vice versa. I will push back against Sean, though, and say, I appreciate what you're doing. I'm always for anything that includes the phrase, that's a conversation. If you want to have that, we can have that. I love the spirit of bipartisanship there. But that's a total false dichotomy, man. To say it's either guns or rape. No, there's ways to prevent rape, and there's ways to prevent gun violence, and we should do both. It's not like we can only prevent one or the other. So although, concealed carry campuses may be a deterrent to rape, I'm saying there are other deterrents to rape that we can look at doing that don't also correlate with a spike in gun violence. So
yeah,
I appreciate what you're getting at there.
No. Yeah, I feel like we don't have enough discussions about how to prevent, about prevention. It's more of protection, and it goes to other things other than gun violence. It also goes to, like I said, the rape issue. We're not doing enough, I think, prevention of teaching people, what is and what shouldn't be done and all that stuff. We're just more of a protection. Here's how to protect yourself. Here's how to protect yourself. Well, why don't you see if you can try and find some ways to prevent the rapist from actually raping people.
Right.
It seems like a novel idea. Obviously, it's a lot harder. I've simplified it to no end, but I'd just like to actually have the conversation and try to figure out ways to prevent some of this stuff from happening instead of always having to do it after the fact and, putting it on the people, the potential victim, to have to defend themselves other than preventing predators in the first place. And you're always not going to be able to do that, I understand, but still.
Look, I didn't want to imply that it's an automatic trade-off. I'm just saying statistically, when when guns are introduced to a situation, certain crimes go up and certain crimes go down. Like in New York, where we have very strict gun control, people are more likely to commit a hot burglary, which is when they break into your house when you are home. In southern states where they have less gun control, those crimes they're more likely to break into your house when you're not home. So like it's that is basically it de-escalates violence if you're going to get your house broken into in the South when gun control escalates violence over here. But there, like I said, there's different trade-offs. Like you're more likely to commit suicide if you have a gun present in the house. Like we've been over this. You're like obviously it's like I always when people say you're more likely to accidentally shoot yourself if you have a gun, I always say yeah. You're more likely to drown in your backyard if you have a pool back there. Like obviously certain things, certain factors increase the chances of certain crimes and decrease the chances of other crimes. Is what I'm saying.
And I think both sides do tend to sort of ignore certain statistics when it proves their point. And I think what needs to really happen is sort of like, like I said, I gave away sort of my liberal bias, but I'm not opposed to getting together, looking at statistics and figuring out what actually works best. And I'm not going to sit there and cherry pick statistics in order to prove my specific point. Jordan, do you have something?
Yeah, no, I can totally get behind that. Like I said, I'm not necessarily all pro or all against this. I mean, my college experience, knowing myself, it's probably a good thing I didn't normally carry a gun. But that's not a good reason to pass laws that may or may not violate somebody's constitutional rights. But have the conversation, let these experiments run out. Hey, and if it turns out these experiments do make schools safer, then God bless, go forward. But the flip side of it is, whenever we say that, then we've got to be willing then, 10 years down the line or 20 years, however long we need to let this experiment play out, if it turns out these schools were not made safer, then we need to take this away again. And that's the problem, is we don't seem to be, as soon as you set the precedent, then the whole, the spirit this law is passed in is gone. And it's, they're coming for your rights, they're coming for your rights. Well, it wasn't right till a decade ago. They're coming for your rights, they're coming for, you know what I'm saying?
All right. So here's what I would have done if I would have had this law. I would have made it up to the universities, and I would have even delayed it for like a couple of years, so new students could see the policy and decide whether they want to enroll in that school or not. Like to me, it's really like it should be up to the university, and we could compare the statistics later. But like I'm not like, I hate that like stereotype that automatically the dumbest person on your campus is going to have a gun and start shooting people when the numbers don't really bear it out. Like probably the biggest victims of this law will be the people who own guns, because you're more likely to be depressed in college and you're more likely to kill yourself in college. But I don't
especially with all the student loan debt.
Yeah. I mean, there might be more shootings at the financial aid office.
I know I'm an asshole because I kind of laughed at that, but
look. But in all seriousness, don't shoot up the financial aid office, because if you get killed by the police, then that debt just goes on to your parents anyway.
Right. I will immediately denounce and reject myself and begin giving teary apologies.
Also, don't shoot up the financial aid office, because those are human beings, and it's bad to shoot human beings.
I think we can all agree on that point.
Hey, if you enjoyed this clip, make sure to like and leave a comment below, or even share. Sharing is caring. If you want to see more TYT Nation videos, go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/TYT Nation. Thank you for watching.